Let me tell you about a fellow who came into my office a few months back. Good man, works hard, feels absolutely fine during the day. Never dizzy, never short of breath, no headaches to speak of. But his wife had bought him one of those little home blood pressure monitors for his birthday, which, by the way, is either the most loving or the most passive-aggressive gift you can give a middle-aged man. I've never quite decided. And one night around 2 in the morning, he got up for a glass of water, saw the machine sitting on the counter and thought, well, why not? He wrapped the cuff around his arm, pressed the button, and watched the number climb to 162/98. And he stood there in his kitchen, in the dark, in his socks, absolutely convinced he was about to have a stroke. So he did what any sensible person does at 2 in the morning. He panicked, took it again, got 158/96, panicked a little more, and then spent the next 4 hours lying in bed, listening to his own heartbeat, waiting to die. And when he finally came to see me, the first thing he said was, "Doc, my pressure's fine when I'm sitting in your office. Why is it trying to kill me at night?" And I want you to know, if you have ever had a version of that night, that 2 in the morning kitchen moment, where a number on a little screen made your stomach drop, you are not being dramatic and you are not imagining it. Your blood pressure really does behave differently at night. For most people, that's completely normal and even healthy. But for some people, it's the single most important clue their body is trying to hand them, and almost nobody is looking at it. So today I want to sit down with you, the way I would if you were across the table from me, and walk through exactly what's happening to your blood pressure while you sleep, why it sometimes climbs when it should be falling, and, this is the part that matters, how to tell the difference between the version that's harmless and the version you genuinely need to take seriously. Let's start with something that surprises a lot of people, because nobody ever explains it. Your blood pressure is not one number. It's not even two numbers. It's a moving thing, a tide, and it goes up and down all day long, following a rhythm that's built right into you. There's a word for that internal clock, the circadian rhythm, and all it really means is that your body runs on roughly a 24-hour schedule, whether you like it or not. Your temperature follows it, your hormones follow it, your hunger follows it, and your blood pressure absolutely follows it. Here's the pattern in a healthy person. Through the day, as you're moving around, working, dealing with traffic, dealing with your in-laws, your pressure runs at its normal daytime level. Then in the evening, as things wind down, as the lights go low and your body starts preparing for sleep, your pressure is supposed to come down with it. And during the deepest part of your sleep, usually somewhere in the small hours, it reaches its lowest point of the whole day. We call that the nighttime dip. In a healthy adult, your pressure should drop by roughly 10 to 20% compared to your daytime average while you sleep. That dip is not a bug, it's a feature. It's your heart and your blood vessels getting a few hours off, a nightly rest, a chance to recover from the pounding they take all day. Think of it like a busy shop finally locking the front door and letting the staff sit down. That quiet stretch is doing real repair work. Then, as morning approaches, and this is the fascinating part, your body starts getting you ready to wake up long before your alarm goes off. It releases a wave of hormones, cortisol chief among them, to pull you up out of sleep and get you vertical and moving. And your blood pressure rises with that wave. We call that the morning surge. It's normal. Everyone has it. It's the reason you can go from horizontal and unconscious to standing up and walking to the bathroom without collapsing. So a rise in the morning in itself is exactly what should happen. Now hold all of that in your mind, because here's where it gets interesting. And here's where your kitchen at 2 in the morning starts to make sense. Doctors sort people into a few groups based on what their pressure does at night. And I promise this is the most useful thing you'll learn today. The first group we call dippers. Those are the lucky ones, the textbook ones, whose pressure drops that healthy 10 to 20% overnight. Then there are the non-dippers. Their pressure just doesn't come down much at night. It stays up on that daytime plateau, hour after hour, never getting that nightly rest. And then there's a third group, the one that really gets my attention, and we call them reverse dippers. Their blood pressure doesn't just fail to fall at night, it actually goes up. It's higher while they sleep than it is while they're awake. Everything backward. And here's why this matters so much. Study after study has shown that non-dippers, and especially reverse dippers, carry a meaningfully higher risk of the things we're all trying to avoid. Strokes, heart attacks, heart failure, kidney damage over the long run. In fact, your nighttime pressure has turned out to be one of the strongest predictors we have of future heart trouble. Stronger in many cases than the reading I take when you're sitting in my office in the middle of the afternoon. Which is a slightly embarrassing thing for the medical profession to admit, because the office reading is the one we've been building our entire system around for decades. So when that man stood in his kitchen and saw 160 over 90 something at 2 in the morning, the question was never, is he crazy? The real question was, is this a normal blip, the machine catching him at a bad moment? Or is this a genuine pattern where his pressure is staying dangerously high all night long while he sleeps? Those are two completely different situations, and the whole rest of this conversation is about telling them apart. Let's talk about why a person's pressure climbs at night when it's supposed to be resting. Because there's usually a reason, and often more than one, and a lot of them are things you can actually do something about. The biggest one, the one I always go looking for first, is a sleep problem, and specifically a breathing problem in sleep called obstructive sleep apnea. Now I know the moment I say the word apnea, half of you picture some poor soul hooked up to a mask and a machine, and you think, that's not me, I sleep fine. But hear me out, because this is enormously common and enormously underdiagnosed, and it is a monster when it comes to nighttime blood pressure. What happens in sleep apnea is that the airway at the back of your throat relaxes and collapses while you sleep, and for a few seconds you actually stop breathing. Your oxygen level dips. Your brain, sensing trouble, jolts your body with a shot of stress hormones to force you to gasp and start breathing again. You usually don't even wake up enough to remember it. But your blood pressure spikes every single time it happens. And if it's happening dozens of times an hour, all night, every night, you can imagine what that does. Your pressure never gets to rest. You become a non-dipper, or worse, a reverse dipper, because your body is being poked awake at the hormonal level over and over till dawn. The classic signs are loud snoring, sometimes with the partner reporting that you seem to stop breathing and then gasp, waking up with a dry mouth or a headache, feeling exhausted no matter how many hours you were in bed, and needing to get up to use the bathroom several times a night. If any of that sounds familiar, I want you to remember it, because this is one of those cases where treating the sleep problem can bring the blood pressure down all on its own, sometimes dramatically. The next culprit is salt, and I'm going to be gentle about this because everybody's tired of being lectured about salt. But here's the piece nobody tells you. It's not just how much salt you eat, it's when and how your body handles it. Some people, and this becomes more common as the years go by, are what we call salt sensitive. Their kidneys are a little slower to clear the extra sodium out. So if you have a salty dinner, and dinner is often the saltiest meal of the day, the takeout, the frozen thing, the restaurant meal loaded with more sodium than you'd ever guess, your body spends the whole night holding on to extra fluid and working to process that salt load. And that keeps your pressure propped up at exactly the hours it should be coming down. The evening meal, it turns out, has an outsized effect on your overnight numbers. Then there's alcohol. And I have to be honest with you here, even though it's not what people want to hear. That glass of wine, or two, in the evening feels like it relaxes you. And in the short term, it does drop your pressure a little and helps you fall asleep. But a few hours later, as your body processes it, it produces a rebound. Your pressure climbs, your sleep fragments, your heart rate goes up, and your nighttime dip disappears. So the very thing a lot of people use to unwind is quietly sabotaging their overnight recovery. I'm not going to tell you to become a monk. I'm just telling you what the machine is measuring. Stress and cortisol are in the mix too. If you're the kind of person who lies down and your brain immediately opens up a spreadsheet of everything you're worried about, your stress hormones don't switch off just because the lights did. Chronic stress keeps that cortisol elevated into the night, and cortisol keeps your pressure up. Chronic pain does the same thing. Arthritis, a bad back, anything that keeps nagging at you in the dark keeps the stress response humming along. Your kidneys and your blood sugar play a role as well. The kidneys are deeply involved in regulating pressure and fluid, so any early kidney trouble tends to show up as a loss of that healthy nighttime dip. And people with diabetes, or even with blood sugar that's creeping up toward that range, very often lose their dip too, partly because high blood sugar over time affects the nerves that control the automatic rise and fall of pressure. So a stubborn nighttime number can sometimes be the first quiet hint of something going on with the kidneys or with sugar metabolism, long before anything else shows up. And then, believe it or not, sometimes the culprit is the medication itself, or rather, the timing of it. A lot of people take their blood pressure pill first thing in the morning out of habit, with breakfast, and by the time the small hours roll around, that medication has largely worn off, leaving them unprotected through the exact window when their pressure is misbehaving. Now, I want to be careful here, because there's been genuine back and forth in the research about whether taking pressure medication at night is better than in the morning. For a while, there was a lot of excitement about bedtime dosing, And then a large, careful study came along and found, for most people, it didn't make a meaningful difference which time of day you took it. So the honest answer is, this is a real conversation to have, but it's a conversation to have with your own doctor about your own situation, not something to change on your own after watching a video. Please don't rearrange your medication because a man on the internet, even a charming one, mentioned it. Now let me pause here because we're right in the thick of it, and I genuinely want to hear from you. Do me a favor, if you've ever had that moment, you checked your pressure at some odd hour and the number startled you, drop a comment below and tell me two things: what the number was and what time it was. I read these and it helps me understand what you're actually dealing with, and honestly, it helps other people in the comments feel a lot less alone when they see how many of us have stood in that dark kitchen. And while you're down there, tell me this. Did anyone ever actually explain the nighttime dip to you before today? Because in 17 years of practice, I can count on one hand the number of patients who'd ever heard of it before they walked into my office. And I think that's a bit of a scandal, frankly. So let me know. It genuinely shapes what I make next. All right, let's get to the question that's probably been sitting in the back of your mind this whole time. When should you actually worry? Because I don't want to do what a lot of health content does, which is spend 20 minutes making you afraid of your own body and then leave you there. The truth is, most nighttime readings that scare people are not emergencies. So let me give you the real dividing lines. First, understand that a single high reading, taken once, at a strange hour, when you've just woken up or gotten up too fast, or after you've eaten a salty meal or had a drink, a single reading like that tells you almost nothing. Blood pressure is a moving tide, remember. Any single measurement is just one photograph of a river. You wouldn't judge the whole river by one splash. So the man in the kitchen, taking two panicked readings at 2 a.m, wasn't measuring his blood pressure. He was mostly measuring his panic. The very act of standing there terrified, waiting for the number, pushes the number up. It's a feedback loop, and it's very human. So the first rule is, patterns matter, single readings don't. What we care about is what your pressure does consistently, over many nights, not what it did one time when you happen to look. Now that said, there are genuine red flags, and I want you to know these cold. If you ever have a very high reading, and by very high, I mean something in the neighborhood of 180 over 120 or above, and along with it you have symptoms, that is not a check it again in the morning situation. That is a call emergency services situation. What symptoms? Chest pain or pressure. Real shortness of breath, the kind where you can't catch your breath lying down. Sudden weakness or numbness, especially on one side of the body. Trouble speaking or your words coming out garbled. A drooping face. Sudden severe headache unlike any you've had, or sudden vision changes. Confusion. If you have a sky-high number together with any of that, you don't wait, you don't finish this video, you get emergency help immediately. Because that combination can mean a stroke or a cardiac event in progress, and minutes matter enormously. I also want you to take it seriously, though not as a same-night emergency, if you're consistently seeing high nighttime numbers night after night, even when you feel completely fine. That's the sneaky, dangerous version. No symptoms, no drama, just a pressure that quietly stays high in the dark, year after year, wearing down your heart and your kidneys and your blood vessels the whole time. There's a reason high blood pressure earned the nickname the silent killer, and it's precisely because the version that does the most long-term damage is the version you can't feel at all. So please don't use, but I feel fine, as your reason to ignore a pattern of high readings. Feeling fine is exactly what it's supposed to feel like. That's the trap. Here's another situation worth knowing about, because it catches a lot of people out. There's a phenomenon we call masked hypertension. It's the opposite of the classic white coat effect, where your pressure jumps just because you're nervous in the doctor's office. With masked hypertension, your pressure looks perfectly normal when I measure it in the clinic. You pass with flying colors, but it's actually running high at home and at night when nobody's watching. So you walk out of your checkup with a clean bill of health, and meanwhile, your pressure is high for the other 23 hours of the day. This is genuinely common, and it's one of the big reasons I'm such a believer in people knowing their own numbers at home on their own time, rather than relying only on that one office snapshot. So what do you actually do about all this? Let me give you the practical part, the part you can take away and use. The single most useful thing you can do is get proper information instead of panic. If your nighttime numbers have you worried, the gold standard tool is something called ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, which is a mouthful, so let's just call it the 24-hour monitor. Your doctor can arrange for you to wear a small cuff and a little device for a full day and night. It quietly takes your pressure automatically, over and over, all day and all through your sleep, without you having to think about it or wake up in a panic. And that gives us the one thing a home reading at 2 in the morning can never give: the whole picture. It tells us whether you're a dipper, a non-dipper, or a reverse dipper. It tells us what your pressure genuinely does while you sleep, not just what it did during one scary moment. If you take one thing away from this whole conversation, let it be this: ask your doctor about the 24-hour monitor. It is, in my view, one of the most underused good tools we have. If you're monitoring at home in the meantime, do it properly, because how you measure matters as much as what you measure. Sit quietly for 5 minutes first, feet flat on the floor, back supported, arm resting on a table at about the level of your heart, and don't talk while it's running. Take it a couple of times a few minutes apart, and note them all. And here's my gentle piece of advice. Do not turn into a person who checks their blood pressure 15 times a night. I've seen it, and it does nothing but feed anxiety, which pushes the numbers up, which feeds more anxiety. Measuring should give you information, not become a nervous habit. If you find yourself getting up to check, that's a sign to put the machine in a drawer and talk to your doctor about a proper 24-hour reading instead. Then there's the sleep piece, and I'll say it again because it's that important. If there's any hint of the snoring, the gasping, the daytime exhaustion, the bathroom trips, get evaluated for sleep apnea. A sleep study is far easier to arrange than it used to be, often done at home now, and treating apnea can transform not just your blood pressure, but your energy, your mood, your whole life. I've had patients tell me it was like getting a decade back. The lifestyle basics still do heavy lifting, and I won't insult you by pretending they're glamorous. Ease up on the salt at dinner especially, since the evening meal has that outsized effect on your overnight numbers. Be honest with yourself about the evening alcohol and what it's doing to your sleep and your rebound. Move your body during the day. Even a decent walk changes the way your vessels behave at night. Work on whatever's keeping your stress cranked up into the small hours, whether that's the breathing exercises, the walk after dinner, the boundary with the work email, whatever actually works for you. And keep the conversation going with your doctor about your medication and its timing, because that's a personal decision that depends on your specific pattern, which is exactly what the 24-hour monitor exists to reveal. Let me bring this back around, because I don't want you to walk away frightened. I want you to walk away informed, which is a very different feeling. Your blood pressure moving at night is normal. It's supposed to fall while you sleep and rise as you wake, and that rhythm is a sign of a body doing its job. A single startling reading in the dark is almost never the emergency it feels like in the moment, but a pattern, a real, repeated pattern of pressure that stays high through the night or climbs when it should be resting, that is your body handing you a note, early, while there's still plenty of time to do something about it. And the beautiful thing, the thing I want you to hold on to, is how much of this is genuinely in your hands. The sleep, the salt, the alcohol, the stress, the timing conversations, the simple act of getting a proper 24-hour picture instead of guessing, these are levers you can pull. Most people never even find out they exist. So here's what I'd love for you to do. If any of this landed, if you recognized yourself in that kitchen at 2 in the morning, don't just sit with the worry. Book the checkup you've been putting off. Ask about the 24-hour monitor by name. And if the snoring rang a bell, ask about a sleep study while you're at it. You don't have to fix everything this week. You just have to stop looking away. Because the whole tragedy of the silent killer is that it counts on you not paying attention. And you're paying attention right now. That already puts you ahead. One last thing before I let you go, and I mean this. Nothing I've said today is a diagnosis, and it's certainly not a substitute for a real conversation with your own doctor, who can actually put hands on the problem and look at your specific numbers. I'm the friend who explains things at the kitchen table so the appointment makes more sense. I'm not the appointment. So take this, bring it with you, and go have the real conversation. If this was useful, share it with the person in your life who needs to hear it. You know exactly who I'm thinking of. The one who feels fine and hasn't seen a doctor since the last presidency. Send it to them. It might be the nudge that gets them in the door. And leave me that comment about your number and your time. I'll be reading. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.